Hi guys, I'm Bryce Auckland. Today we're going to be discussing Florida Probate Administration, specifically, well, what happens if you can't find the heirs or the beneficiaries in an estate? This happens a lot where you have, believe it or not, siblings that lose touch, or sometimes given the structure of the distribution of the estate, it may be beneficiaries who've never even met each other. It can be cousins, estranged family members, whatever the case. So one of the things that we've talked about before in these videos is, well, what is the probate court really doing? It's a division of the circuit civil court that's charged with distributing property of the decedent. So it's an in rem jurisdiction, which gives the due process requirements a little bit less of a threshold than if we needed personal service. And what that allows you to do is serve beneficiaries through what's called formal notice. And as always, we'll put a link to the substantive law in the comments section here below, but formal notice is a particular form of service available for probate administration that allows you to serve beneficiaries via U.S. certified mail with a green card receipt. So it's signed delivery by any commercial delivery service that requires signature acceptance will work. Also, you can serve people with a process server. A lot of folks make that mistake. If you can't find an address, or if certified mail is not working, you can use a process server to serve probate documents also. You don't need to serve them with that threshold of service, but you certainly can. So you're serving different documents throughout the administration of the estate. That's a petition for administration, sometimes a notice of administration, inventories, final accountings. There's all these service requirements built into administration, and it really trips a lot of people up or prevents them from moving to administer an estate if they think, oh, well, I haven't found so-and-so, and we're not going to be able to do it because they're missing. Good news for you, if that's a situation that you're running into, there's all sorts of tricks that we'll talk about today to try and move the case forward despite the fact that you can't get service on a missing beneficiary. So one thing that we do often if we can't find a beneficiary is we move for service via publication. So a process server has the ability to do what's known as a skip trace, which is a search of someone's name based on prior addresses to get a kind of a picture, a digital footprint of their history. So the first thing to do if you have a missing heir and you need to provide service is to contact a process server, and they will provide a skip trace. And then if you're working in Florida and you have this issue, contact our office. We can give you a referral to a number of good ones. And that will provide you with a list for the process server to attempt service for a particular individual. This is kind of a nationwide process, okay? So any local, if you're working in Florida, but your beneficiary is, let's say, in California, any of your local process servers will just have a network in whatever county you're dealing with to attempt to serve that person. The first step is just to get that search done and to attempt service. So let's say you go through that and you can't find the particular person. Well, what happens next? Okay, so you will get from your process server basically, hey, what do you want me to do? And they will create for you what's called an affidavit of diligent inquiry. And that affidavit shows, hey, I attempted to find this person. Here's the search criteria that I used. They certainly just weren't ascertainable. That affidavit allows you to file a motion in court in your probate proceeding for service via publication. Then you can get an order allowing for service via publication, and the clerk of court will publish a document called a notice of action. And the notice of action is the constructive service to the world that, hey, there's a probate proceeding going on. The reason that that's a possible manner of service, again, is because what the probate court is doing in Florida is we're moving ownership of property. So even constructive service is good enough. So you can serve someone constructively through a publication. And what that does is allows you to move the case forward and ultimately get distribution of assets. That is helpful in getting your beneficiaries who you can ascertain their share of assets. It can certainly cause problems if you're dealing with property, especially if the missing heir is ultimately an individual going to own an individual share of the property. So how do you deal with that? Well, once you administer the estate and you transfer ownership to the missing heir, if we're talking about real property, for example, then there's other legal actions to force the sale or the cash out of that property. Those are called a partition action. So you're entitled in circuit civil court to file a whole separate lawsuit after you transfer title to the known heirs and the missing heir to force the sale of the property and to cash out their interest. And the interest of the missing heir that's liquidated simply gets held in the court registry. Same thing with bank accounts. If there's a net estate that's payable ultimately to the missing beneficiary, you simply move to pay their share into the court registry. And that's a good segue into talking about something called the unclaimed funds. So the state of Florida has the Florida Treasure Hunt website, which is essentially Florida's division of unclaimed funds. And what will happen is, after a certain time of non-activity, those assets get filtered down, and registered locators have access to the funds and who they're supposedly remitted for, and they will do the investigative work to try and find those people. So we have clients all the time call us, is this a scam? So-and-so's telling me that I'm entitled to X amount of dollars if I simply sign up for an unclaimed funds sort of recovery. So that's what will happen ultimately if you have a missing heir, is that you move to serve them via publication, you get the publication, and then you can move on with your case. There's money for them. You're going to move to pay it in the court registry. The court's going to hold it for a certain amount of time, put it with the Department of Unclaimed Funds, and then it'll ultimately filter down probably through heir investigators over the years who will try and find that person so that they can take a percentage of the recovery. So if you're dealing with an estate and you have missing heirs, you can't figure out who the heirs would be, anything that's anywhere related to this, feel free to give us a call. We do probate administrations throughout the state of Florida.